Welcome to Sumita Roy's English Classroom. This is Professor Sumita Roy, and today we are going to start a new series of videos on business communication. Many of you have been asking how to progress in your career because when you get into a professional sphere, you require English. And there, many of you are struggling. People who have gone to different parts of the world write back saying that they are not able to get their promotions because their English is not good. Very often, people who are appearing for a job interview or people who have just joined some job also have similar problems. So, in this series of business communication, we shall talk about the various requirements of English when you have to do well in your career, when you have to become a professional who's successful. Today, let us start with the first few steps. What you need to do to improve your business communication is that you have to be perfect in your spoken and written forms of the language. In your personal life, you require a different spoken context and a different written context. Those also I'm doing for the basic learners. But these videos are for people who are struggling because their communication is not suitable to the business context, to the marketplace, to the place where they have to go in their professional lives and where they struggle. But please remember that in a single video, I cannot tell you everything. So these are the first steps which I'm going to talk about. Now, when it comes to the context of speaking, you must remember that in business, you cannot speak unless you know what is to be communicated. To understand what is to be communicated, you need to first listen to your client, to your customer, to the person who has come to you for business. Or in your organization, you need to listen to your colleagues, to your superiors, to your team members, to people who are working under you. All these you have to be very careful about. So, how do you listen? In what manner do you listen? How much do you listen? What is your attitude when you listen? What kind of a mind do you have when you listen? These are all very important for business. In your personal life, in your social interaction, people might not be so worried about how much you have listened and how much you have understood. But this is not the same in the context of your business communication. In business communication, each word or each nuance of a word is important. The way in which it is communicated, the tone of the voice, the words which are being used, the speed at which the words are being communicated, all this you have to listen to. Suppose you are a customer care executive. People call you all the time with their problems. Now, what kind of listening is required there? Unless you listen with an open mind, you cannot understand the problem of the person on the other side. That person is trying to explain, you are not allowing that person to explain. by telling them that the company's policy is different or trying to answer what they haven't asked you. This is not good communication. You will not succeed in this communication situation because you are not listening properly. You are listening with a defensive attitude, saying, my organization is excellent, my product is very good, therefore you should not complain. That is the feeling that the complainant gets. That is the feeling that the person who's talking to you gets. Obviously, the person gets very angry. It happens very often. And they might abuse the person who is the customer care person. Then you feel very hurt that you are trying to help the person and that person is abusing you. That person is shouting at you. That person is getting angry. But you have to listen to everything with an open mind. To a rude person, you have to listen with an open mind without being rude. To a polite person, you have to listen with an open mind. You cannot be, laid back by saying, okay, this person is very polite. You need to also listen to a person who's not able to communicate clearly, because from that half communication which that person is giving you, the speaking which the person is doing hesitatingly or in a complicated manner, you need to understand. So you need to process what you listen to. In order to understand what is happening, you need to process it. You also have many other contexts of listening, such as when you attend a meeting. Suppose you are only a participant in a meeting, then you have to listen. The meeting might be very long, you might get bored. You just sit and scribble in your book, or you think of other things outside the room. Your listening suffers. Suddenly, if something is asked to you, you have not paid attention. You have not even listened. You have just heard the sound. There is a difference between hearing and listening. So, when you want to improve your business communication, you need to listen before you speak. There are many speaking contexts in business. We will do them one by one. For instance, many of you might have to conduct a meeting. Many of you might have to do briefing every morning, and it might be online. It might not be face to face briefing. You have a group which is online. You are going to talk to them every morning. So, your communication, your ability to speak in these meetings makes your business communication better. Suppose you have many ideas in your mind and you have not organized those ideas properly. The meeting is just 10 minutes and you have to give 5 minutes to the participants to speak. So your role is only 5 minutes. Now, in those 5 minutes, you have to communicate all the points which you have noted down in your mind or in your file, and you have to communicate them. Now, suppose you have clarity. These are the points, and this is the sequence. Sequence is the order of arrangement. Then your meeting is very clear and everybody understands. But you might not do that. You're speaking on one point and then you go off to another point. Without finishing that point, you come back to the first point, and therefore you jumble all the ideas which you have. At the end of the meeting, nobody is clear. So you wasted your 5 minutes. You did not communicate properly in your 5 minutes. Now, if you want your team members to respond, they haven't got a clear communication. What response will you get? Instead of getting ideas from them as a response, you will get questions. by saying, we did not understand this, we did not understand that. You will start clarifying that, and your 10-minute meeting goes to 20 minutes. We cannot waste time. We do not have, in a business context, we do not have time to waste. Therefore, your communication has to be very precise. Suppose you are speaking one to one. How will you speak with the superior? How will you speak with your subordinate? How will you speak with the lower staff in your office? How will you speak to people who are at the highest level of your company? Every context requires a different strategy for speaking. You are a successful communicator when you are able to satisfy all these contexts. Please remember that you might be very good at boss management. You can speak to the boss very well. You can say exactly what your boss wants to hear and always satisfy your boss, your manager, by saying exactly what is asked of you. But when it comes to your colleagues, you are very vague. You are not clear. You are not able to communicate fully. You just give one or two words, and that communication is never clear. You might be very casual with your subordinates. They don't respect you if your communication is bad. To the people who are the underlings, who are the lowest level of staff in your company, you can earn their respect only when your communication is good. You get many situations where you might have to do a little bit of counseling to people around you. You might be a young officer, you might be a young person, but elderly people might come and ask you how to resolve their problems. Sometimes you give advice, sometimes you counsel. Somebody is in a bad way, you try to help them. All this requires spoken communication. So, spoken communication is something which you need to be very strong in. What are the various types of spoken communication? I will try to prepare many videos, each video on one of the contexts of listening, and each video on one of the contexts of speaking. In this way, there will be many videos which we have to do. Now we come to reading. In a business context, you might have to read letters, you might have to read files, you might have to read reports. You have a variety of reading jobs when you start working. It is not only listening and speaking, but you have to read a lot. Now, how do you read? What is your speed of reading? Suppose they give you a 50-page file or a 50-page report. Can you say, I will read 1 page per day, and for the next 50 days, you read that report? That is not business communication. That is terrible. Because at your leisure, you can read 1 page per day. But they might tell you that you have to read the report in 1 day and you need to make points of what the report is. You need to summarize or paraphrase the report in order to be able to say what exactly the report is. You might have to very often analyze, if it is something like a proposal, then your senior tells you that please look at this proposal and analyze whether it is good or not. Then what do? You need to read it in such a way that you are able to look at it from a point of view of what are the positives and what are the negatives. If the positives are more, you say, okay, this is viable, this is possible. If the negatives are more, then you say, this proposal needs to be revised. Imagine, so much importance is attached to your ability to read and to make up your mind. Here, in a business communication, reading is not only for understanding, reading is very often for evaluating, reading is very often for responding. So, what are the ways in which we read? You might read, a bulky file where hundreds of people have written something, and you have to read all of them and give your opinion. Or you might read a single page, or you might get 10, 20, 30 emails every day, and you have to read each of them and respond to each of them. You might get letters in the physical form. They put all the letters on your table. When you go to the office, you find a stack of letters are waiting. You need to read all of them. You need to reply to them, or you need to pass it on to somebody else, all in the space of those few hours, which are your working hours. So there is a lot of pressure on your reading. Just reading for pleasure, reading for relaxing, reading because we enjoy reading is not business communication. Business communication has special skills of reading. So unless we know in what manner we can master those skills, we cannot become good at reading. We need to read in our subject, in the points in which our organization takes the lead. These things we have to read apart from what is our own work, because we need to have a good idea of what is required when we evaluate something. So, reading up a background is very important. Business communication, especially for reading, is also important when young job seekers are going for a job. If any of you is appearing for a job interview, you need to read up about that company. Please remember that they might ask you a question saying, how will your skills match with our company's motto or our company's vision and mission? How will you suit our company's requirements? Now, if you don't know what are the company's requirements, what is the vision and mission of this company, why you have applied for this company, just by looking at the job title and your qualification, if you've applied, that is not good enough. You need to read. You might be applying in 10 companies. So you need to know about all those 10. What are they doing? What is their position in the market? What are the advantages which this company has in the marketplace? These are things which you need to read. Nobody is going to tell you this. The job advertisement does not give you this background. But then the job advertisement also needs to be read. If you have read only half of it and have not concentrated on reading the full thing, you might be applying for jobs which are not suitable to your profile. That means there is a fault in your reading. Your reading needs to change, and your reading needs to become better. So, how are we going to read? When it comes to business communication, what are the requirements of reading? That we will do some videos. This is a series of videos on business communication. So, this is the first one. That is why I've called it the first step. Now we come to writing. In your job, in your professional life, there'll be very often situations where you will have to write. Suppose you want to make a presentation, Then you might require a PowerPoint. What do? To prepare the PowerPoint slides, you need some material, and that is your written thing. Whether you write it on the keyboard or you write it with pen and paper, it doesn't really matter. What you're doing is you're writing. Now, when you're making an oral presentation, to give a slide which has small print and lots of material is not a good writing skill. You just give point wise a few points which will help the audience to understand what you're saying, but it is not for you to keep looking at that writing and reading it out. Your audience can read it. You don't need to read it aloud. Therefore, those points are for your audience, they are not for you. This you have to remember. When you receive letters, when you receive emails, as I told you, step number one is reading, and step number two is answering. So, how would you answer a formal letter? How would you answer an informal letter? Suppose a letter is there which is not very formal, but by mistake it has come to your business place. Then you have to answer it accordingly. The tone of your answer is determined by the tone of the letter. Similarly, in an email, the tone of the email you have got is also the manner in which you have to reply. If the tone is formal, you need to reply in a similar tone. If the tone is slightly informal, it is casual, you have to do accordingly. So, your ability to decide which letter requires what response, which email requires what response, determines your writing. Then, as I told you, you might have to write a proposal. Suppose you are submitting a proposal to a client where you have to say all what is possible. You want to have an MOU with another company, it needs a proposal. You have to highlight what are the exchanges in this memorandum of understanding, which is MOU. So you need to write a proposal. How is a proposal is written, what you have to keep in mind, all these we will do in the series of business communication videos. You have to be patient because I can't do multiple videos on a same day. It takes a lot of time to do the video. So we will do that. Suppose you are writing the minutes of the meeting. Your superiors are conducting the meeting. You are sitting down. You have been given the work that you note down the minutes of the meeting. You have to write down everything which was discussed, every question which was asked, who attended, who spoke, who asked questions, who replied, what was the discussion, what was the conclusion, what decisions were made, everything without missing out anything. So you can imagine how much concentration is needed. Here you are listening and writing, not listening and speaking, but listening and writing. Therefore, you have to be very careful. Like that, there are various contexts where we need to do business writing. So, for all these, separate videos are required because they will take a lot of effort on your part to master them, but not so much, time, because you can do it quickly. You can just follow the principles which are given in the videos, and then you have to go ahead and learn them. Next, we come to the basic requirement. I have been telling you from the first video, this may be the 65th or 64th video, or 60, 70 videos are already there. From the first video, I've been saying that language requires a foundation. So if your foundation is weak, just this afternoon, I got a long WhatsApp message saying that I'm struggling in my career because I'm not able to communicate in English at all, then what would I suggest? I would suggest that you go to the foundation first. You have struggled for so many years. Don't worry, struggle for another month or two and build up your foundation. Your foundation are your language skills. I have done many videos on grammar. They are not very popular because people want to learn quick English, not grammar. Of course, if you can learn grammar without learning the rules, that is best. That's wonderful. I have nothing against it. But since we do not get much exposure to English, since you might not have anybody around you who's speaking to you in good, correct English, you have a problem. Then you go to the videos and you learn them. Watch the videos 3, 4 times, then practice them for one whole day. That lesson is complete. Many grammar items are left. I will put them slowly one by one. But you have to, your foundation in grammar should be strong. Otherwise, you are not going to get any benefit out of all the business communication videos. Because in these videos, I'm assuming that you don't have problems with your foundation in the language. Next is vocabulary. Your business, your area of expertise, your subject has a business specific vocabulary, a subject specific vocabulary. So, apart from learning a general vocabulary, you need to learn the vocabulary suitable to your company's expertise, to your own subject expertise. Unless you have this specialized vocabulary, your business communication is not going to improve. If you use an ordinary word instead of the specific word, then you cannot be good at business communication. Then you have, if you speak, you should be understood. So your pronunciation, your clarity, ability to speak spontaneously, these are all videos which are there. You have to learn from them. Then you have also the, spelling and punctuation. Spelling and punctuation videos I haven't started yet, but at every point in many videos, I'm mentioning these. Spellings can be learned. There are many rules, but there are exceptions also. So we learn spellings by those rules. Soon I will do some videos on spelling and punctuation. Then you also have, you when you listen, when you read, the punctuation is there in front of you. The spelling is there in front of you. Only thing is, we don't pay adequate attention. Because we don't pay attention, we don't learn. Therefore, you have to have 100% concentration. Suppose you can devote 1 hour to learning English, to improving your business communication. That 1 hour should be 100% concentration, not 50% here, 50% elsewhere. That does not help you. That only wastes your energy and takes up more of your time. This is not good. Therefore, what you need to do is you need to be sincere, saying that my progress is stopped because of my bad communication. Many of you are excellent because you have diagnosed, you have understood what is your problem, and you write. Many people who have gone, with good jobs to earn their livelihood elsewhere very often get in touch, and then they say that they are struggling there because everybody else is better than them in communication. So they are being overlooked for any promotion. They are hard workers, they are doing an excellent job, but it is only their communication which is stopping them from going ahead. I remember many people from, you know, uh, the professional colleges, their teachers were telling me that People who have more marks sometimes fail to get campus recruitment because their communication is poor. People who have lesser marks than them, the toppers, might not get if their communication is not good. An average student with excellent communication gets a job because the company feels that it is easy to teach them technical skills, it is difficult to teach them communication. So please spend your own time learning communication. I will do some videos for all of you so that your business communication problems are solved. Thank you and all the best.